And where does it leave the Democrats? Because, there was the expected wipeout, perhaps as a plebiscite on Biden himself and maybe declining powers, some saying, and the confusion and chaos and so on?
If they do keep the Senate, that gives them a desperately needed lifeline for the next 2 years. If it winds
Even if it's by one vote?
Even if it's by one vote, he still has that. It'll be a critical one vote. But on the other side, if they do lose, you can speak about a lame duck presidency for the following 2 years.
Well, here's a thought. Even if you don't take the Senate and Democrats hold it by one vote, the Republicans won't be that unhappy to have 2 years of what they still see as a lame duck president, even though he's still got some political control.
Yes, it will be all about obstructing any kind of radical agenda from Joe Biden. It will be preventing them from getting through things like packing the Supreme Court with more justices. But the Republicans,
which is what the Republicans have done previously. One has to say,
and I would say both sides do
okay.
that. But it is about, in my opinion, needs to be playing for the long game. And I think that this definitely underlines it for Republicans that we need to move on from the Trump era. We have a definitive leader who can unite a diverse base.
Yeah.
You have to think of Florida. Florida actually is like a mini America. It represents all different demographics from across the country. So it makes him a very strong contender in 2024.
And some relief that this has taken place without any kind of public disorder or disruption and the suggestions that people will be calling out, wrong votes and all sorts of shenanigans. Doesn't seem to have happened so far.
There have been a few instances in Maricopa County and Philadelphia where people are raising questions about, machines running out of paper and ink and that sort of thing. But so far, so good. And, I hope, for the sake of the country, we don't have any of that.
Yeah, and Biden was saying, this is a vote on democracy. And clearly worries that it was a divided nation, particularly over what Trump had said. And, of course, thinking back to what happened on Capitol Hill. Did he over-egg that?
America remains a divided country. I think those should have been his words. His words should remain a divided country, and we have to try to achieve some form of basic national consensus. And his 2 years as president, he has struggled to do so. In my opinion, had he stayed more to the center, he would have yielded more results and dividends. The fact is that he was swept to the left of his own party, and as a result, we see greater division. And so that's what 2024, whoever wins that election, the presidency, it literally has to be someone who can achieve some kind of form of basic national consensus, which the country has not seen in a very long time.
Yeah, and is it about the economy, stupid, as we remember those Clinton years?
It's not all about the economy. Right. It has a lot to do with politics. Social issues, cultural issues, religious issues. When that statement was made, it was attributed to President Clinton in 1992, the beginning of a new generation.
His campaign manager,
in the post-Cold War period. We're learning now that it's all not about the economy. If you look at places like China and leaders like Xi Jinping, for him it's not all about the economy. He's willing to sacrifice elements of the economy to centralize and to retain political power. Right. And you see that throughout the world.
This is perhaps an unfair question, but is Biden capable of carrying on for another 2 years?
Well, it depends upon his health. And, so far, there's many instances where people have questioned his health. I mean, seriously, it needs to be, you're the president of the United States. You need to question his health. And many times there's been incidences that have led credibility about his state of mind.
There was even mention about the Democrats looking at Hillary Clinton again. I mean, would that really be a serious possibility?
That would be a sign of desperation. Because if you look at, there's been key critical elections in American history. 1960, John F. Kennedy marks a new generation. 1992, Bill Clinton marks a new generation. The country desperately needs a break from the previous generation. Right. And in 2024, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they have to be part of that post.
So who could be waiting in the wings then as the new face, if you like?
In the Republican side?
Or Democrats, I was thinking.
The Democratic side, I don't think, unless something happens to the president's health, they're not going to give up on the president because he's the only one who can unite that party. And I hate to use the term, but it's like the lowest common denominator.
And Kamala Harris?
No way. The party doesn't trust her, and she hasn't proved competent enough. There are other individuals in the party, some who ran in the previous election, some of the other candidates. So if something would have happened to Biden, that he would not to be the candidate. And then you look back at who are the previous candidates from the 2020 election. Yeah. There's 3 or 4 names who would be the centrists within that party. Right. But on the Republican side, I think at this point, Ron DeSantis, it's going to be head-on. Ron DeSantis and Trump. No other candidates. Others may try to run, but they're not going to have the gravitas to run, the credibility to do so, or the standing nationally.
I think Americans rethink and reevaluate the importance of liberal democracy and the fact that we've had a really strong turnout. It's said in voting that people thought we've got to defend democracy whichever way we vote.
It was healthy. You had a large turnout, which is healthy in any country, in any election, in any democracy. So I don't buy this thing about democracy in America is at risk. It's a shift. It's a historic transition taking place. And when a historic transition takes place, there are a lot of complications. What we see happening now is part of that process. But I think it's in America, most ordinary Americans vote in a very responsible way. What I mean by responsible is that they respect the views and the opinions and the differences of others, unlike many in the press in the U.S. would like to make it. It does remain a divided country, but yet it's still a civilized country. If you want to see violence that what really split America, look at the late 60s, the summers of 67, 68, 69, when the National Guard was coming out and entire neighborhoods in inner cities in America were burning down.
And
in many of those many of those areas never recovered. We have a difficult period, a difficult generational transition, many problems economically, many problems socially, and many problems politically. But still, it remains a civilized nation.
Nothing compared to the 60s.
Nothing compared to the 60s.
I do think people of both parties would really like the baby boomers to move on and for a new generation to come in and take control.
To take place.
On that note, I'll shut up. But thank you both to Sarah and Marco. Let's just reflect. 48 Democrats to 47 Republicans at the moment, Senate. But, of course, we'll wait and see what happens in Georgia and the House of Representatives. 173 Democrats, 199 Republicans. More to come. We'll keep you updated here on GB News. Thank you to both of you. Great stuff.